I wanted to do my own thing. So I took what I learned at Neiman's and connecting high net wealth individuals and charity and entertainment.
What makes you the ultimate connector?
I love PR, right? I want to hear the story. I want to get your story, and I want to think, who do I know or what do I know that can kind of make this story better?
Bobby Masha is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
All right, guys, I'm super excited. Today we have a great guest. She is the type of woman that you feel, when you first meet her, you feel like you've known her forever. She just has an electric personality, and she's got a great story, a story of coming up and dealing with celebrities and high net worth individuals. She's built a business around it, one that she will say kind of is fitted to her lifestyle. So she's not a live to work type of woman. She's a work to live. And I'm super excited to hear a little bit about how she got to where she is, what she's doing today, and just wrap it out with Maria Falzo.
Hello, how are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Excited to have you here. I always like to start off a little bit with, a little bit about your background. I think that it's important for the listeners to understand who's sitting in the seat across from me.
Right.
And, let's kind of take it from there.
So I grew up right in New Jersey and then college in Philadelphia and really got my start in events and PR in Philadelphia. I lived in Philadelphia during a time when it was really starting to become a city more than it was like a hometown feel. And I worked for a woman, her name is Nicole Cashman, who I still consider like my mentor till today. She is a very well-known publicist. And I became her assistant. And that's really how I got my start in events and PR. And I really just did that for the time that I was in Philly. And we started opening up restaurants and nightclubs and doing some really cool things in Philadelphia at the time. So that was a really exciting time to be in Philadelphia.
Philly was interesting because I remember when and we're about the same age. So early 2000s when, after we graduated, going back to Philly, because I went to school in Pennsylvania also, except just a little further north. I was up at Lehigh. Yes. And, we would just go and check out these cool hip spots that were opening up.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a new spot every couple of months.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Steven Starr was opening up a significant amount of restaurants. And then he started coming to New York to open those up. But we were doing all of like the openings in Philly, which was very cool. But then I was in a bad accident in Philadelphia, which brought me back to North Jersey.
Okay.
And right before I left Philly, I became the assistant to the owner of all of the Hugo Boss shops in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. So Hugo Boss shops at that time were franchised. So individual people owned all the Hugo Boss shops across the country.
The Hugo Boss clothing stores?
Yes.
They were all individually franchised?
They were all individually franchised.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I worked for the largest franchisor in North America. His name was Norman Bosco. And he owned all the stores in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. So I handled all the events for all his stores.
That's interesting.
So that was kind of starting like the luxury retail marketing world for me. From then, I went on to become the public relations manager for Neiman Marcus in Short Hills. And that's really where I started really understanding the connection between high net wealth individuals and really what motivates them to either buy or what motivates them in entertainment. So because we were a retail store and we were probably the best store that any one of them would be shopping in, we would host a lot of events that would take what they were doing personally, whether it was through charity or through their life, and host events in the store and really marry those types of philanthropic community relations.
So there'd be some sort of a philanthropic endeavor that you guys were working with that you would then host it in the store and then do a PR event on?
Yes, exactly. If we had a client that's children that went to Gil St. Bernard's, we would host a fashion show for Gil St. Bernard's, and then the portion of the proceeds would go back to the organization. It just seemed very exciting to be able to work with a brand, bring out the story, tell the story through the store, but also excite the consumer in a way that seemed super interesting to me.
So what was the, you kind of said you found the, I guess the secret sauce to working with high net worth individuals and the things that they like to shop and buy. What was the process in terms of how did you guys figure that all out? What was it trending or?
So, I mean, when you're working for Neiman Marcus, your clientele is a certain client. You're dealing with the top 1%, right?
Right, because you can't afford it otherwise, unless you put it on credit.
So you're dealing with the top 1%. Our philosophy was, you treat everybody the same way. Everybody can buy lipstick in Neiman Marcus, and you want to grow them to buying, their couture if they can. But through that process, how can you connect with these people in a way that could be of service to them? And that was the way. It was connecting through their nonprofit events, through what moved them. What did they donate to? How do they connect to their communities? And a lot of them, they sit on boards of hospitals. They're involved in their children's schools. How could we be of service to them to give them something that they can't buy, or to give them something that was an experience? And when I worked for Neiman Marcus, it was all very based on experiential marketing.
Yeah,
so,
they always say give first, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea, to get somebody to be a little bit more interested in you. It can't always be about what you're taking, about what you need. It's about giving for what they need. It kind of makes people more interested in
absolutely.
What it is that you're doing.
Absolutely.
So I know that you pivoted off of working for Neiman Marcus.
Yes.
And that was what was the next phase?
So
because I want to get to when you opened up your own shop, and what was
absolutely.
What was the dynamic in your life, and what led you to do that?
So the work that I did at Neiman's was, pivotal to the rest of the story. But in 2007, either I had to move to a bigger store or I had to go find another job, because corporate was in Dallas. There was nothing in New York for Neiman Marcus.
Why did you feel like you needed to move, just for your own personal growth? Or?
So the way that the structure of the company, there wasn't a lot of options otherwise. So it was either go to Chicago and become the PR manager for a bigger store, or to like a Bell Harbor, where it's a smaller store, but much more different clientele base. And I wasn't ready to leave. Like, I didn't want to leave my family. I didn't want to move to a city where I didn't know anybody. So I wanted to do my own thing. So I took what I learned at Neiman's and connecting high net wealth individuals and charity and entertainment, and I started my own agency.
Because I think what's super interesting, in terms of everyone I talk to that knows you, talks about you being the ultimate connector. And, it takes a certain personality to really kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together when you're talking with people. And, what makes you the ultimate connector?
I love PR, right? So the PR is like instilled in me. So I want to hear the story. I want to get your story, and I want to think, who do I know, or what do I know that can kind of make this story better? And I always say that I find that I am really rooted in service, and I have always been motivated by serving others. It's service in a service position. I've always worked in a service job or a service position of some sort, even if it's for planning events for high net wealth individuals. It's still a service. So I really enjoy that work, and I really enjoy knowing somebody that could benefit somebody else.
So
I like connecting people.
What were some of the things that you did when you were with Neiman that you were like, I'm going to replicate this? Like, what were some of the cool things, cool connections that you had made?
So, one of the events that people still talk about, and this was in 2008, there was, Susan G. Komen, which is a nationally known organization, we hosted the Pink Tie Ball, which was their largest fundraiser.
And that's breast cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their largest fundraiser for the year, we hosted in the store, which meant we had to shut the store down for 3 days. We had to transform the store. We were able to cut the budget from what they had done previously to produce that event, which was like $1 million event. We were able to cut the budget, and because we were hosting it in the store, we were able to plan it for like $330,000 at the time, which was like unheard of. And it is so memorable because no one's ever done that in a store, to take over the store and basically turn it into this gala for 1,500 people. I mean, black tie event. It's one of those things that just kind of people still remember if you were in that gala world back then.
So what was that like? What was the event like?
The event was 1,500 people. We ripped out the shoe salon and built a stage for Smokey Robinson and his 40-piece band. We flew them in.
Were the registers open?
No. It was completely closed. But I remember sitting at like literally 4:00 in the morning at loadout. And this is like the unpretty part of the job, right? On a rolled up carpet, because we had these carpets made for the store for red carpet. So we didn't have a red carpet. We had a multicolored carpet that was like the colors of the season that we had made, that was like 150 feet, that came through the front door. And I just remember sitting there and being like, wow, like no one else was there. And I was like, we just did that. Like that was super cool. And we ended up raising like $1.5 million at the night, which was a really good number at the time.
When you took your contacts and you started to go off on your own, talk to me a little bit about that transition and what life was like for you.
So my dad, we're like serial entrepreneurs, right?
Okay.
Like, so that's always, that side hustle is always like deep in me. It was just a natural thing for me to be like, I can do this myself. I don't need to have to work for a corporation. And I had made so many connections working in that industry. And I had such great relationships with media, with, you know, the clientele base, that I felt so confident to be able to do this on my own. And when I left to do this on my own, I started out with, I still remember it. It was a recycling company. And this recycling company, it was my first client. They needed to do a grand opening of a new facility. We turned out this event and we did a groundbreaking that they had never seen before. And it was just super, super cool. And I was like, we're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We're going to be good. And from that point, I guess, then we just started, just based on my connections, we just started doing some charity events. I was kind of like the go-to agency. And this is also when New Jersey was like really being watched. It was when New Jersey Housewives just started. There was Jerseylicious. There was like all these like shows about New Jersey, none of which we had anything to do with. But New Jersey was just on the map, right? Like nobody cared. And now all of a sudden people care.
It was amazing how almost every,
it was
almost
real
every
weird.
reality TV show was connected back to Jersey.
Oh my gosh. And we would get calls constantly about people wanting to pitch us shows or do a show or do something about like planning or something. And it just was crazy. But because we were kind of the go-to agency, or, I was like one of the go-to people to launch a national product, but on a local scale. So if L'Oreal was launching a new hair color line, we would connect them with the salon in the area that would be able to do the fashion show or to do the hair show. We worked with Paul Miller to launch, at the time, it was the new Bentley. So we did an event in a private jet hangar in Teterboro where guests could come and check out the jets, and we had the cars there, and it was a big cocktail party, and we invited everybody, and it was, super fun and cool. But it was things that people weren't really seeing at the time.
What made you different than your competitors? Was it just more the contacts that you had built, or was it something that you guys just did differently?
I never really look at it as like a competition. I still believe that there's enough work to go around. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of, why do people want to work with me rather work with somebody else? I think it's a personality thing. I think that we do good work, but we also, me personally, it always goes back to the connection, the relationship I build with that person. Like, I don't know that there's many clients that I've worked with that I still don't talk to or can pick up the phone and call today.
You had mentioned that your entrepreneurialism came from you growing up.
Yes.
And your dad had been an influence on that entrepreneurialism that you have today.
Yeah.
What was life growing up? Like what got you what got you in that mindset?
I think just, my dad, he owns real estate, so it's always been, but he was also in the franchise business. They own TCBYs. He used to drive a Coca-Cola route. Like there's just a lot of different things. And there's always been a lot of different, I guess, revenue streams. And
now, how did you fit into that whole mix?
how did I fit into it?
Just growing up and then being on the periphery, or were you hands getting dirty in the mix of
So my dad, when I turned 15 or 6, I guess I was 15. Yes, I was probably 15. That's like when you can legally work, right? 15?
Well, it depends. Like if you're, if you're the owner's kid, then it's,
No, but I never worked for my parents.
Just kidding.
Right. I never worked for them though. So my father told me like I'm going to buy you the car, but you're going to have to put gas in it. So I got the new car. I was like one of my only friends that worked and got a job, and I used to scoop ice cream, but it was like kind of like the hangout, right? So I turned it into this hangout. So even though I was working, I made it the fun place for everybody to come. So when I was working, everybody wanted to come and hang out. So it made it not so much like work.
And that's that electric personality coming out.
I guess so. Again, it never really felt like work. So I think my family or my father instilling that work ethic in me where, doing a good job, kind of making it that it never really feels like work to me. It still doesn't feel like work. So that connection piece, like it still doesn't feel like work.
It's amazing how much better the quality of life is when you have fun at work, because then
100%.
you're not dreading it. You don't get the Sunday scaries. It's kind of something that you look forward to.
Absolutely.
Something that excites you. And I think a lot of people miss that in their general day to day.
Yeah. I want my life to be fulfilled enough with all the other things that work just is like a bonus.
But I think that's an art, not a given. Like, I don't think that people just automatically figure that out.
I mean, there are people that chase the money, right? Like you're only going to do something if it makes you super rich. Well, or in a better financial situation, but which I think is great. I feel so blessed that I'm able to find or figure out work through connection or through relationships or through, my passion for service that actually pays me to do what I do.
So, we talked a little bit about events. We talked a little bit about PR.
Sure.
Tell me, like, what does a day-to-day look like? What are you really doing in your business?
Right now, every day looks different for me because, again, I am really working my business around my 2 kids. So at this stage of my life, I'm saying I'm in my mom era right now. I'm really big on time blocking. So in the morning, get the kids to school, and then I work for X amount of time, and then I go to Orange Theory, and then I come home, and then I work for a specific amount of time. Then I got to get the kids. So I have it blocked like in my calendar. So
is Orange Theory how you kind of keep your sanity?
Yeah, a little bit. It's gotten me through some really, really rough times.
I think everybody needs their like Orange Theory. They need to figure out what it is that's going to
Yeah,
help them
it's
grow.
that thing for me that
And for those that don't know, Orange Theory is a gym that you could probably explain it better.
It's a workout. It's Orange Theory Fitness. It's broken up into 3. It's rowing, running, and weights. And it's a HIIT class.
Has that always been your approach, time blocking, making sure that you have your segments of the day set aside for certain activities, or is that something that you evolved to, or what is? Because I think a lot of people, the challenge for most people is managing their time. And
absolutely.
I think time blocking is a great theory. I think sometimes people go in with the best foot forward, but end up finding themselves bleeding into times that they blocked for one thing and to finish up something else. So talk to me a little bit about how
100%. Don't get me wrong. My day derails like probably 10 times a day. But
you're supposed to talk like you're perfect.
I know, but that's not reality. And I am really good at, telling it like it is and, not taking myself too seriously. So I can tell you that every single day I have it blocked. Sometimes, that derails, but I do believe that it's a great way to, like you said, like start it. But it's not necessarily the way it always works out.
So how'd you get to it?
How did I get to it? I had kids because, that's it. I'm a single mom, so I have to make it work.
So how do you continue to build your business with the kids and Orange Theory and your business? How do you, how do you really put where do you put your efforts
So right
And what's
now,
your team look like? And what does life look like for you?
I am the team right now. So I am the team, and I'm the, right now it's me and
Myself and I.
Me, myself, and I. But I also work with a handful of coordinators that have worked with me for the last 10 to 15 years of my life that I pull into projects. So depending on how big the project is, it'll depend on how big the team needs to be. So for me right now, my business is broken down to professional and personal events. For the most part, there's a lot of personal events where we come in probably 6 months or 2 months before the event and really help pull together all the pieces and handle timelines, execution. We'll run the show the day of the event. So there's those kinds of events. With more professional events, if I'm working with a business, I might come in, for example, I'm working with someone now, we're talking about they're turning 30 years. This business is a very well-known business in the area, a luxury lifestyle brand. People know of it in New Jersey. It's been around for 30 years. Their celebration will be in October of 2025. But leading up to that, we're going to do a whole bunch of celebratory things to celebrate that anniversary. So although the event or the party will be in October, we're going to launch a campaign in January to kind of get us to that road.
So what's floating around in your mind when you say we're going to launch a campaign? Give me some ideas.
A lot of content creation on social media. So we're going to tell some stories. They've got 30 years of stories and thousands of clients that have walked through their doors, and generational, like grandma, mom, daughter, granddaughter. There's a lot of stories to be told. The owners have been fixtures in the community for a really long time. So there's content creation or social media. I also think that there's going to be some really interesting, networking opportunities for them to be able to host things or smaller events in their store, in their location, leading up to that. And then we'll have a really big party in October.
That's the problem with us Italians. When we speak with our hands, we sometimes hit the microphone. I keep hitting the microphone.
I'm going to sit on my hands right after I put my coffee down.
So give me an example of like the events that these all come to you like via referrals, or do you?
Yeah, most of word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah. So the personal event space is new. In 2017, I started freelancing for another well-known planner. I just had my second baby. She was having her second, and she needed help in her business. We were able to come together and figure out what worked. So when she couldn't be there, I could be there in her place. And we really figured out like a strong, partnership. She came up a lot of the formulation. I, kind of helped tweak it and streamline it in a way that we kind of made it more manageable for every client, especially with, us having small children. So for us, once the client comes on, then we would figure out like what is the best way to execute. Because again, it's, God love them, but anybody planning an event, it's their only event. It's not our only event.
Can you give me a specific event that you have created? I don't know. It could be a wedding. It could be whatever. But like take the listener down the road of what that looks like and what that energy and the output looks like.
So if we're planning a wedding, we're going to pull out all of the information of the client, of the vendors that they've already booked, whether it's a photographer, it's a videographer, it's, florist, all of that. And then we start to really become their eyes and ears for the day, because the whole plan is for anybody, whether it's a wedding or it's a birthday party or whatever, is for you to be a guest at the party. We don't want you to feel like you're dealing with any of that. So they are the guest. Mom is the guest. Dad is the guest. We don't want them handling anything or feeling like they have any burdens for that day on the day of the event. So now all the work is done. We've already talked to the vendors. We've got everybody in line. We get to the venue. First thing we're going to do is when we get there, we're going to check in with the host, check in with whether it's the bride or the host of the party. And then we're going to start to run the timeline. So we'll stay all the way through just to make sure speeches, dances, all that sort of stuff. So we will write the program and run the program.
So everything from wedding to 30 years in business.
Yeah.
What are other some major events that you like to tackle or that you find a lot of excitement behind?
So I love to do estate weddings or estate events. State events on people's properties. I work a lot in your neck of the woods because people have a lot of land.
Yes, because we all have estates over by me.
No, we call it estate, but it could be. But my point being is like, if you have a lot of grass, it can work. But I do a lot of events where we're, erecting tents and bringing caterers and bathrooms and all of the pieces, dance floors, every fork, every knife, every spoon. So those are really fun. And those, obviously they take a lot of time. But
so I could assume that was something similar to what you did at the Hunt.
The Hunt, I worked with a builder out in Staten Island that comes to Steeplechase, comes to Far Hills races every year. They basically have this tent. They take the tent in the backstretch, and then we handled all the catering, all of the invites, all of the, food and drink.
I don't know if it's the largest, but for those who don't know what the Hunt is down in Far Hills, New Jersey. It happens once a year, and it's a big steeplechase. It's a race where people come and corporate entities set up tents, and usually it's corporate entities because it's very expensive to do so. And then they have what would be called the infield at other races where you have the general standing room and people are making private bets on horses and they're drinking way too much and indulging as much as they possibly can for the day. So it's a very haughty-taughty event, except for the rowdy people who decide that they want to turn it into like a major drink fest.
Yeah.
But on the tent side,
it's much more civilized,
much more refined.
Yes.
Much more
civilized. It's an event for everyone, but the sponsored tents are, great business opportunities. This is a huge opportunity for networking. But again, I'm already starting to think of I have a list of businesses that I think could really benefit from the opportunity like this to do a networking event or to host something for their clientele there. And then I can help them manage all of the food, the drink, the catering, the parking passes, the, site visits and all of that kind of stuff.
So in the pursuit of balancing your life, your kids, your Orange Theory, your career, how many events do you get to a year? What's like your max capacity, or what do you aim to hit on an annual basis?
So I like to hit between 20 and 30. 20 if I have more larger scale events, but I can get to 30.
Gotcha. So a little bit of a quicker hit, quicker turnaround, not so complex.
I'd like to be at 20 and just have
bigger events, bigger clients.
Events, or just more meaningful, more meaningful ways of being able to service that client.
Entrepreneur as a kid, growing up around dad, getting out into the PR world, decide that it's time to find work balance with your kids, changing course and direction. What have been kind of the couple of things that you live by that keep you focused and moving forward?
What do I live by? Always trust your gut. That's a big one for me. If it doesn't feel good, whether it's a client or personal or professional, just don't do it. Don't take that client. Because
it's funny how that intuition thing kind of comes up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't do it because it's going to be bad. So that for me is a good one. My dad always used to tell me the house always wins. So don't gamble with a lot of things, whether it's your money or your heart, or don't be a gambler, because that's not going to work.
The gambler's credo. The house always wins.
The house always wins. I just remember that. He just was don't. Yeah. So I will take a risk with an event and I'll push the envelope with an event, but I'm not going to be risky with people's money or how they spend it. I still think more conservatively like that.
So what's a big risk of spending money? Where do you see that in terms of the total event, or do you see it in?
So when you talk about personal events, people will spend more money on personal events than they will on corporate events.
It's that emotional.
You're emotionally connected to this. And I can tell you that people will spend. It's
got to be my best day. It's got to be better than the Joneses. It's got to be better than anyone's ever seen before.
More flowers, more
More cowbells, more everything.
All of the things, right. And you think about it, it's one day and it's, but it's a very important day. But people will spend more there. But I also understand that everybody has a budget. And I do a lot of managing budgets, even whether it's a personal event or a professional event. I do help them manage their budget. But I tell everybody, find what's important to you. Are flowers important to you? You'll feel better about spending a little bit more on the flowers if the flowers are important. If it's the pictures that are important, well, then make sure that you pad your budget a little bit more there. And let's, not invest in much in the videographer or whatever it is.
Do you find that most people come to you with a budget, or do you find that most people kind of go, well, how much is this going to cost? And let's work to figure out what the budget is.
Personal events, people have a budget more than not. Professional events, people don't know what to spend for their business, which I find so interesting. But we usually have to build it from scratch with the personal, with a professional budget.
What are some of the things that you look at when you're creating a professional budget? If somebody says, all right, put this event together for me. So I want to make sure that they're getting out of it what they want. Like, are they getting, or do they want to, is it a client based? Is it is it ROI based? Is it just something is it PR based? Like, what is it that you want to get out of that event? So that was something that I learned through my work at Neiman's, is we always had to tie an ROI to every dollar we spent. If we spent $100, we had to make $4,100 in lipstick. So we always had to do that. So when I'm working with any business, I want to make sure that they're getting what they want. Sometimes it's not always sales, right? Sometimes it is PR. Sometimes it's about breathing new life into their business. Sometimes it's about just it being a client appreciation event. But I want to make sure that at the end of the day, if they're spending all this money, that they're getting what they want out of it. And I'm sure everybody has their own multiple, right? Their
100%.
own multiple of return.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, just like anything else, different things are important to different people. And it all depends on what they want out of it.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure our listeners know before we part ways?
No. If they want to find me, they can find me at thehipevent.com.
Thehipevent.com?
Yeah.
Because you're totally hip?
Yeah.
HIP? Is that the...
HIP.
Okay.
Yep. Thehipevent.com.
All right. We'll have that in the notes.
Thanks.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Social media? Can we find you on, Insta, IG?
The Hip Event. The Hip Event. I'm not on TikTok. I can't do it. But I am on Instagram. I put a lot of my work on the Hip Event. And you could find me there. And I do a lot of reels of like different events behind the scenes. I'm a big behind the scenes person.
I think that's more interesting, the behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, yeah. My clients actually I download all the behind the scenes that I took all day when I'm there. That's like their favorite thing to get the next day. What's so cool is the newest thing right now for especially weddings and personal events are these content creators. They don't take the place of your photographer or your videographer, but they come and they kind of follow you through the whole day and create these reels that are, content creation for like your social. And it's really fun.
It's amazing how much that is like just taken over people's attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I was like, I'm actually meeting with one tomorrow to learn more about like exactly what that looks like. I've done a few weddings where they've had it, but I really want to like know more.
So is that more for your clients or is that also for you?
I think that's more for my clients.
Yeah.
That one is for my clients because they're specifically focused on events, but I will do content creation for me. I have an idea for actually a podcast.
Oh, there we go.
That I'm going to be working on.
What's the idea? Can we get a grand reveal? Can this be the place where you
when it happens. Yeah. I got to get all my ducks in a row, but it'll be a really fun one.
Very cool.
Around this business, my business. So, I think when I started the Hip Event, the whole premise of that brand was me and, out every night, networking. I've always been a big networker. And then I was getting married and having kids. So, again, I was out a lot, when you're dating and all of that kind of stuff. But then when you have kids, like everything changes. And I knew that that's what I wanted. So I knew I wanted to have kids. I knew I wanted to be a mom. I knew that was like going to be my focus. So when you think about like business and, for me, it was never about like climbing that ladder for me. It's really about, figuring out that balance. So being a mom was the most important thing to me when I had my kids, and it still is. So everything I do is really shifting around making that work. But now, as my kids get a little older, they're 11 and 8, I really need to obviously put myself back out there. In that time, I did get divorced. So that kind of changed things for me a little bit, where I think I need to put myself back out there to, obviously I am working a little bit harder now than maybe I was when I was married, because his business, was first and foremost at that time. So now it's really,
so now it's time to focus on you.
So now I got to focus back on me and really putting myself back out there, networking. My favorite event every month is the third Thursday. It's like my only day that I get out to come to your network.
That's our GR Connects networking event.
Coming out to your networking event. It's kind of like,
it's a private invite only, so don't even think about showing up at the door uninvited.
For me, my story is, figuring out what does this next step look like for me and my kids.
All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. Maria, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.